beautiful flowers. I have now formed acquaintance with many Mexican dishes: mole, meat stewed in red chile, boiled nopal, fried bananas, green chile, etc. Then we invariably have frijoles, brown beans stewed, hot tortillas, and this being in the country, pulque is the universal beverage. In Mexico tortillas and pulque are considered unfashionable, though both are to be met with occasionally, in some of the best old houses. They have here a most delicious species of cream cheese made by the Indians, and ate with virgin honey. I believe there is an intermixture of goat's milk in it, but the Indian families who make it, and who have been offered large sums for the receipt, find it more profitable to keep their secret. Every dinner has puchero, immediately following the soup, consisting of boiled mutton, beef, bacon, fowls, garbanzos, a white bean, small gourds, potatoes, boiled pears, greens, and any other vegetables; a piece of each put on your plate at the same time, and accompanied by a sauce of herbs or tomatoes. As for fruits, we have mames, chirimoyas, granaditas, white and black zapotes, the black sweet with a green skin and black pulp, and with black stones in it, the white resembling it in outward appearance and form, but with a white pulp, and the kernel, which is said to be poisonous, is very large, round, and white. It belongs to a larger and more leafy tree than the black zapote, and grows in cold or temperate climates, whereas the other is a native of tierra caliente. Then there is the chico zapote, of the same family, with a whitish skin, and a white or rose tinged pulp; this also belongs to the warm regions. The capulin or Mexican cherry, the mango, of which the best come from the Orizaba and Cordova, the cayote, etc. Of these I prefer the chirimoya, zapote blanco, granadita, and mango, but this is a matter of taste. 12th. We have spent some days here very pleasantly, riding amongst the hills in the neighbourhood, exploring caves, viewing waterfalls, and climbing on foot or on horseback, wherever foot or horse could penetrate. No habits to be worn in these parts, as I found from experience, after being caught upon a gigantic maguey and my gown torn in two. It is certainly always the wisest plan to adopt the customs of the country one lives in. A dress either of stuff such as merino or of muslin, as short as it is usually worn, a rebozo tied over one shoulder, and a large straw hat, is about the most convenient costume that can be adopted. The horses are small but strong, spirited, and well made, generally unshod, which they say makes the motion more agreeable, and almost all, at least all ladies' horses are taught the paso, which I find tiresome for a continuance, though a good paso horse will keep up with others that gallop, and for a longer time. The great amusement here in the evening is playing at juegos de prendas, games with forfeits, which I recommend to all who wish to make a rapid improvement in the Spanish tongue. Last night, being desired to name a forfeit for the padre, I condemned him to dance the jarabe, of which he performed a few steps in his long gown and girdle, with equal awkwardness and good nature. We met to-day the prettiest little ranchera, a farmer's wife or daughter, riding in front of a mozo on the same horse, their usual mode, dressed in a short embroidered muslin petticoat, white satin shoes, a pearl necklace and earrings, a rebozo, and a large round straw hat. The ladies sit their horse on a contrary side to our fashion. They have generally adopted English saddles, but the farmers' wives frequently sit in a sort of chair, which they find much more commodious. Some country ladies who attended mass in the chapel this morning were dressed in very short, clear, white muslin gowns, very much starched, and so disposed as to show two under petticoats, also stiffly starched and trimmed with lace, their shoes coloured satin. Considered as a custom of their own, I begin to think it's rather pretty. The oldest women here or in Mexico never wear caps, nothing but their own gray hair, sometimes cut short, sometimes turned up with a comb, and not unusually tied behind in a pigtail. There is no attempt to conceal the ravages of time. It appears to me that amongst the young girls here there is not that desire to enter upon the cares of matrimony which is to be observed in many other countries. The opprobrious epithet of old maid is unknown. A girl is not the less admired because she has been 10 or a dozen years in society, The most severe remark made on her is that she is hard to please. No one calls her passée or looks out for a new face to admire. I have seen no courting of the young men either in mothers or daughters, no match making mammas or daughters looking out for their own interests. In fact, young people have so few opportunities of being together that Mexican marriages must be made in heaven, for I see no opportunity of bringing them about upon earth. The young men, when they do meet with young ladies in society, appear devoted to and very much afraid of them. I know but one lady in Mexico who has the reputation of having manoeuvred all her daughters into great marriages, but she is so clever, and her daughters were such beauties, that it can have cost her no trouble. As for flirtation, the name is unknown, and the thing. I have been taking lessons in the Indian dances from Doña R a. They are not ungraceful, but lazy and monotonous. On every door in this house there is a printed paper to the following effect: "¿Quién a esta casa de luz? Jesús. ¿Quién la llenar de alegra? María. ¿Y quién la abraza en la fe? José. Luego bien claro se ve que siempre habrá contrición, teniendo en el corazón a Jesús, María y José." Who gives light to this house? Jesus. Who fills it with joy? Mary. Who kindles faith in it? Joseph. Then we see very clearly that there will always be contrition, keeping in our hearts Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. These are written in verse, and below, "The most illustrious Bishop of Monterrey, Don Fray José de Jesús María Baloanzaran, hereby ordains and grants, along with the Bishops of Puebla, Durango, Valladolid, and Guadalajara, 200 days of indulgence to all those who devoutly repeat the above ejaculation, and invoke the sweet names of Mary, Jesus, and Joseph." The people here have certainly a poetical vein in their composition. Everything is put into verse, sometimes doggerel, like the above, in which luz rhyming with Jesús shows that the z is pronounced here like an s, occasionally a little better, but always in rhyme. We went this evening to visit the Countess del , who has a house in the village. Found her in bed, feverish, and making use of simple remedies, such as herbs, the knowledge and use of which have descended from the ancient Indians to the present lords of the soil. The Spanish historians who have written upon the conquest of Mexico all mention the knowledge which the Mexican physicians had of herbs. It was supposed by these last that for every infirmity there was a remedy in the herbs of the field, and to apply them according to the nature of the malady was the chief science of these primitive professors of medicine. Much which is now used in European pharmacy is due to the research of Mexican doctors, such as Sarsaparilla, Jalap, Friar's rhubarb, Michoacán, etc., also various emetics, antidotes to poison, remedies against fever, and an infinite number of plants, minerals, gums, and simple medicines. As for their infusions, decoctions, ointments, plasters, oils, etc., Cortes himself mentions the wonderful number of these which he saw in the Mexican market for sale. From certain trees they distilled balsams, and drew a balsamic liquid both from a decoction of the branches and from the bark steeped in water. Bleeding and bathing were their other favourite remedies. The country people breathed a vein with a maguey point, and when they could not find leeches, substituted the prickles of the American hedgehog. Besides bathing in the rivers, lakes, tanks, and fountains, they used a bath which is still to be seen in many Indian villages, and which they call the temezcalli. It is made of unbaked bricks; its form is that of a baker's oven, about 8 feet wide and 6 high, the pavement rather convex and lower than the surface of the soil. A person can enter this bath only on his knees. Opposite the entry is a stone or brick stove, its opening towards the exterior of the bath, with a hole to let out the smoke. Before the bath is prepared, the floor inside is covered with a mat, on which is placed a jar of water, some herbs, and leaves of corn. The stove is then heated until the stones which unite it with the bath become red hot. When the bather enters, the entry is closed, and the only opening left is a hole at the top of the vault, which, when the smoke of the oven has passed through, is also shut. They then pour water upon the red hot stones, from which a thick vapour arises, which fills the temezcalli. The bather then throws himself on the mat, and drawing down the steam with the herbs and maize